Chapter 44 Forbidden Love. It has now been a week since my isolation. Blake hadn't returned, which hopefully means he finally understands my terms. I gave his son away out of the curse. The least he could do was stay away from me for an eternity. There was still one person who I wasn't willing to give away out. Father has hidden far too much from me. How could he betray me like that? Why would he leave it to that she-devil to tell me instead? I know what I have to do, heck, I want to do it. But I just can't, as much as I hate to say it. He's my father, he raised me, stayed by my side. He never left me, he just kept things from me. What do I do? Do I confront him? Or do I carry on acting like the coward I am? Hiding like a child in my own room. 3 loud steps make its way towards my door. I swivel my head towards the entrance, anticipating the person about to be repelled by my magic. To my surprise, the footsteps stop right outside my door. Standing up from my dressing table, I make my way towards my door and stop a step away from it. Whom dares disturb me, I inquire. Waiting for a response, silence clearing my throat. I speak up once more, I said, who's there? Not a sound. Huffing, I turn away from the door and begin to walk back to my seat at the dressing table when a small voice speaks up. You know. I was shocked to hear it myself, the voice says. I stop in my tracks. That voice, hear what I say. Walking back towards the door. That you had practically locked yourself away from the rest of the world, the voice says. Speaking louder after every word. I recognize that voice, that soft American accent. Luke, I say, pulling the enchantment on my door down. Rushing towards the door. I swing it open and my eyes meet with a pair of pale blue eyes. The pale blue eyes I had longed to stare into. Hey Raven, miss me, Luke says, chuckling. I grab his forearm and pull him inside, briskly placing the enchantment back up. How are you here? I ask once I reassured myself no one else could get in. Well, after spending the week with a vampire and an angel goddess, Leo came to fetch me, saying you isolated yourself from everyone. He said I could convince you to come out, so here I am. Luke says, his warm smile directed at me. Sorrow falls upon my eyes. Remember, Raven. It is forbidden to love a mortal then again. He isn't exactly human. I'm afraid even you can't lure me out of my domain, Luke. I can't face the evil that awaits me outside. You mean your dad? He asks, raising an eyebrow. I nod. He betrayed me, he hid me from myself. Do you know how that feels, Luke? Being hidden away from your true self, I say. A small tear falling down my cheek. The barrier I had placed up to keep my emotions at bay had now officially broken. I couldn't keep it hidden much longer. Luke wipes my tear away and looks directly into my eyes. I know exactly how that feels. My mom kept me from myself too. She didn't tell me I had the sight. And she didn't tell me I was an immortal either. When I did find out, I was devastated, just like you. The only difference is, it was too late for me to ask why she hid it from me. But it's not too late for you, Raven. I listened carefully to his words. Luke lost his mother, so he doesn't know why she kept him from himself. Is he telling me to speak to my father? No, I couldn't possibly. I can't, Luke, I sob. Turning my back to him. This isn't you, Raven. Where's the girl that was determined to take my soul, huh? Where's the girl who ignored what people said and did it her way? Where's the girl that didn't believe and can't? Where's that girl, Raven? That girl is weak. She's been betrayed, hurt, and most importantly lied to. Luke, you're all I have left, I say. The tears streaming down my face like a waterfall. Luke walks up to me and wraps his arms around me. We stay like that for what seems like hours, just silently embracing each other while I pent out all the emotions I had kept hidden for years. Luke's soothing voice breaks the silence. I cling onto his warmth as he speaks. You know what you have to do, he says. Looking into my eyes, I nod. I don't want to do it alone, I say. The thought of facing my father alone scares me. I'll be there with you, Raven. I won't let you down, okay, for the first time. I look into Luke's eyes with passion. Luke is here for me. Luke won't abandon me. Luke will never betray me. I finally found what I had been searching for. I was searching for the love inside me that I have for Luke. I was just too afraid to show it to him. I was too worried about the consequences of a forbidden love. But now I know how I feel. Now I know what I want. And it's standing right in front of me. I long to be with Luke. To be writhing his warm embrace all night. I want to be with him no matter what. Even if I have to sacrifice my duty for him. I may have been fond of my Reaper duties, but Luke is more important to me. Maybe one day I will take over the underworld and be its goddess. And when that day arrives, I shall decree a new law. People may live whomever they want. I look into Luke's eyes and then at his lips. I lean forward and close the distance between us. For the first time I kiss Luke. And within the kiss is all my love that I have for him. For once I can finally say I love Luke. Chapter 45, Greeting the Dead. For once in my life, I find peace in the silence between Luke and I. We stare blissfully into each other's eyes for what seems like hours until he finally speaks up. Not holding back anymore, I see, he says, raising an eyebrow at me. I can't help but smile at his comment. I've changed so much since I've met him. For once I'm happy to have changed. I'm sorry I led you on for a while, I say quietly. Looking down to the floor. Luke gently grabs my chin and pulls my face upwards so that my eyes meet his. Hey, don't live in the past, okay? You've got me now, remember? Oh, I couldn't forget it. For once I was positive someone would be by my side and never hide anything from me. For once I could look confidently into someone's eyes and see nothing but the truth. That someone was right in front of me and was mine as much as I was his. I'll never forget it. I just can't believe it's taken me this long, I say. Smiling up at him, it felt good to smile. I used to walk the underworld with either a smirk or a scowl. Never a smile, and look at me now. Smiling like a mad cat. I'd always wait for you. I just wish Mom could have met you, Luke says, sighing as he glances out the window. Maybe she can, I say, thinking it over. Some souls never manage to leave onto the afterlife. To gain entrance to the afterlife, a soul must complete their unfinished business. If this is not completed, they are deemed to wander the plains aimlessly in the underworld, never to truly move on or ever experience happiness again. Now, I personally don't keep track of these souls because usually they are a lost case. But maybe Luke's mother is still here. What do you mean, Luke asks me, looking at me with a puzzled look, smiling. I eagerly reply, some souls cannot move on and are stuck in the underworld. Your mother might be one of them. You mean you could meet my mom? Yes, I say, smiling widely. Luke throws his arms around me and holds me in his tight embrace. I can finally get the answers to so many questions, all thanks to you. So where do we start? Luke says, grabbing my hand and running to the exit, looking at the wooden doors. I glue myself on the spot. Luke halts and slowly turns around, realization crossing his brows. There's a book with all the names of the wandering souls. The only problem is I struggle to even say it. I can't bring myself to speak those words. Your dad has it, doesn't he? Luke asks, causing me to meekly nod. I don't know if I can face him yet. Come on, Raven, you're the strongest person I've ever met. Surely your dad isn't your weakness, right? Luke had a point. I can't allow my father to have the upper hand. Besides, if I face him now, Luke can finally see his mother again. Okay, let's do it. I pull the enchantment down and rush down the hall with Luke tailing right behind me. Just get to the book. Don't look him in the eye, just get the book. I keep repeating these words over and over in my head. All I have to do is look for her name soon. Luke and I reach our destination, the throne room. Inside, I can hear voices chattering among themselves, notifying to me that reapers were in fact present. Taking a deep breath in, I barge through the wooden doors and march my way over to Father. Raven, I see you have finally overcome your childishness. Welcome back, my dear. Would you like your daily duties? How dare he call me childish? Yes, my acts may not have been appropriate for the future goddess of death, but he has no right to call me childish. Not after all he has done. Give me the Book of Souls, I say, without looking him in the eye. Father tilts his hooded head in amusement at me. You've never dared look in the book before, why now? But I didn't need to answer that question. His garnet eyes made their way to Luke's pale blue orbs, and a flash of understanding crossed my father's eyes. The book now, I demand, waiting impatiently, glaring at Luke. Father clicks his fingers, and in a burst of black smoke, a large leather book appears in his lap, the color of coal. Raven, you must understand why I didn't tell you. Without letting him plead his case, I raise my hand to silence him. There is no justification to your actions, Father. We can discuss this at a later date now. The book, I say, my palm outstretched towards the leather-covered book. Father clears his throat and stares at me for a few moments before meekly handing over the piece of binding to me. Quickly, I flip through the pages until I land on all the souls with the surname Smith. Luke, what is your mother's name? I ask. My eyes focused on the female section in the book. Maria, Luke says proudly. The name of his own guardian angel. My eyes scour the page until I finally find a Maria Smith. The picture next to her name was a small blonde-haired woman with bright blue eyes. I tilt the book towards Luke for confirmation, and he in return gives me a firm nod. You aren't doing what I think you're doing, are you, Raven? Father speaks from behind me. Curiosity gets to the better of me and I turn to face him. What do you mean? Remember, the wandering souls are lost causes. If you think you can help his mother, you're wrong, he says in a low voice, in attempt to make me back down. For once in my existence, I glared deeply into my father's eyes, feeling the insides of me changing slightly to allow him a glimpse of my true form. No, father, you're wrong, I say in a low voice. Slowly regaining my original form and posture, I glide out of the throne room with Luke at my side. Maria Smith, I shall help you no matter the cost. Chapter 46, The Condemned. Slamming the doors behind me, I leave the underworld palace behind and begin to wander the plains for Maria. There's one problem that has been swelling inside me. What is Maria's unfinished business? What is she missing, or more importantly, what if it's not Luke? Pushing all these thoughts to the back of my mind, I pull out the Book of Souls once more. With the book in one hand, my scythe in the other, I begin a locating spell. Guiding spirits, I ask thee for thy guidance. Lend me your charity and focus. Offer your kind clarity to me, I beg these spirits. Lead me to the thing I cannot find. Restore that and my peace of mind. Return the lost one I seek, though out of mind and control, to find this lost person. Show me a path, dear spirits, to the one I cannot find. To save Maria and restore my peace of mind. After chanting these words, a path becomes clear in my mind without hesitation. I trust my mind to be my guide and follow it down hills and trenches, until we reach the edge of the underworld plains. Here I notice there is not a soul in sight. I scout every inch before me, but not even Maria's soul appears to be here. Raven, are you sure you spoke the spell right? I mean, you did only learn magic a couple days ago, right? Luke, you don't understand. I was born with magic in my blood. If I was an amateur, then yes, a spell like this wouldn't work. But there is no ordinary magic in my blood, I say, sighing. He doesn't understand. I adapt to things easily, that's all. Then why isn't there a single soul? Luke jolts to a silence and stares just behind me. Confused, I abruptly turn around, and there in the distance is the soul of a blonde-haired woman. Maria Smith. Only she did not appear to be the woman in the picture I saw. My eyes avert to the page open in the Book of Souls, and I desperately look at her picture. Her eyes are full of life, and there's love in her cheeks. Looking back up at the soul, none of these features appear on her, of course. She is dead, so no life will be found in her, but I've never seen a soul so ghastly pale as her. Before I can say another word, Luke runs from behind me and makes his way over to what was once his mother. Mom. Luke cries out desperately as he finally reaches her. I watch in pain as I see him attempt to grab his mother's hand and then watch his flesh and blood go right through her. Luke stares desperately into the eyes of Maria's soul. Only these were no eyes of a mother. These were the eyes of death. The white soulless pit that consumes those who are condemned. Remember, the wandering souls are lost causes. My father's words taunt me as I watch Luke hopelessly try to make contact with the lifeless spirit in front of him. Reluctantly, I make my way over to him and witness the condemned soul for myself. I don't understand, why isn't Mom responding? Luke asks desperately as he turns to me. She's gone, Luke, I say, directing my vision to the floor as those heartbreaking words leave my lips. No, she's right here, look, she's standing right here. It's just the underworld, that's all, Luke says, trying desperately to find a loophole. I look up at the eyes that dare to overflow in the presence of Maria. Luke desperately holds back his tears. I'm sorry, Luke. There's one thing I forgot to tell you about the souls in the underworld. What's that, he asks, his gaze not removing from the figure of his mother. Some souls wander endlessly because they have unfinished business. Others wander because their fate has been deemed to end with the underworld. I'm afraid your mother did something so terrible that it led to her being condemned to the underworld forever, I say with deep sadness embedded in my voice. My mom was innocent, she did nothing wrong. Luke bellows as he turns to me. He rushes up to me and grips onto my shoulders. Luke, calm down. Do something, Raven. You're a demigod, right? Save her, he says. Shaking my shoulders as he does. Luke, please. Your grip as I speak. He seems to tighten his hold on me. You said to me yourself that the magic inside you is not ordinary. Save my mom, Luke commands, his grip practically numbing my shoulders. Luke, I know this is a bad time, but even gods feel pain too, and stop talking and save her already. Luke screams at me. I finally hear a snap and immediately I fall to my knees. I try lifting myself up with only my hands, but I am unable to withstand my own weight as I collapse back onto the ground. You foolish boy, I say, choking on my words. Looking up, I make eye contact with his pale blue eyes. The look of regret is plastered all over them. How could I trust a foolish mortal like him? Or should I say foolish immortal? A small droplet escapes from my eye as I watch him. I trusted him. I thought I finally found someone. Trust is the first step to love, Luke. I trusted you. I truly did. But you cared not for me but for what I could do. Raven, this isn't how it looks. Silence, I scream, using my last ounce of energy to glare at him. Spirits, I beckon thee for thy help. Raven, what are you doing? This boy has abused his gift. I ask thee for help in my time of need. Raven, please stop. Seize his immorality. End his reign of power. Leave him as the mortal he once was, I say. Feeling the magic inside me burst out and strike Luke down. He screams in agony as a magical surge hits him. Removing his immortal abilities, I am no monster. I have showed mercy upon him. I spared his life. Luke collapses alongside me, falling unconscious. With the click of my fingers, I return him to earth. At least there he can rot till he reaches hell. With all my strength, I look up at the gloomy sky. I will not die from the mortal's foolishness. He is only temporarily weakened me. This will not be the end. A war is coming and I shall proudly stand on the battlefield. Then all at once darkness consumes me. Chapter 47. Weekend. My eyes feel heavy. I cannot move them to look around. But I am certain I am no longer in the plains of the wandering souls. I feel a soft surface beneath me. Perhaps something like a bed. Look, I understand where you're coming from, kid. But she's too weak to even sit up, let alone be moved across the world. I hear a familiar voice state. I understand that, but if father finds out how weak she truly is, he will practically disown her. Another voice pleads. This voice I did recognize, my damned brother Blake. The very brother I told to stay away from me. How could he take advantage of me like this? Now the question is, who is the owner of the other voice? Blake, you know I can't disobey your father. If he finds out about this, he'd have us hanged. Relax, I can't die, Blake replies cockily, but I can. But you're the brother of death, Hypnos. That I may be, but I am the god of sleep, therefore. I am not related to the death cycle, meaning I can be destroyed. And, by the looks of it, so can Raven. I want to scream for a reason. But I seem incapable to do so thus. I wait in silence. What do you mean? Blake asks wearily somehow. The awakening of her powers has allowed her to become weak. Releasing her emotions helped do this, I believe. So you're saying that Raven's weak? Precisely. Allowing herself to love that boy made her lose her barrier of protection. Remember, your father chose to teach you to conceal your emotions for a reason. Listening closely. I almost want to cry out and say it's not true. I desperately want to shout that I'm fine. But if this were true, then I wouldn't be in the situation I am now. Then surely if her barrier is down, she'd be safer with me. Blake cries out in annoyance. Right now he's the last person I want to be with. Then again, I don't think I could cope with father either. Do that's what she wants, Blake. Look. I have aided you a lot in the past, but right now we should wait for your sister to recover, Hypnos says, sighing. I hear him take a few steps away from Blake just as a crash echoes around the room, which I assume is Hypnos' cave. Why wait? I hear a dark voice say as footsteps start to advance in my direction. Styx, what are you doing? Blake cries out. What is Styx doing here? Shouldn't he be at the river? I feel a cold liquid touch my eyelids and soon I am able to open them once more. I stare into the bright purple eyes belonging to Styx before they darken to their normal red shade. Sitting up, I look towards my brother and uncle. All I want is to scream at the both of them, but I have to take into account that they saved me from father's wrath. Sighing, I turn to Styx. Where did you get that potion from? I ask, looking at the empty vial in his hand. Styx immediately hides his hand within his cloak and walks away. Blake steps in the way of the exit. forcing him to face me now standing. I glide over to him and glare into his eyes. Realizing he has no other option, he begins to speak. "Your mother," he says in a dark tone. "She is not my mother," I say through gritted teeth as I attempt to summon my scythe with the click of my fingers. No scythe appears. I click my fingers again and again in attempt to retrieve my only weapon. But nothing happens. "What's happened to me?" I yell. Turning to my uncle, "You've been weakened, Raven. You are no longer an average demigod. You have dark magic, and this has allowed your box of emotions to spill out and take away your strength and power," Hypnos says, looking at me with a deep sadness in his eyes. "That's impossible," I say, completely in denial that I have grown weak. "I'm the strongest reaper in the underworld. I cannot simply be weakened by a useless mortal." "Come on, Raven. I'll take you back with me," Blake says, grabbing me by the wrist and leading me outside. He attempts to transport us to his home, but I manage to snap out of his grasp. "What are you doing?" I yell, glaring into his eyes. "I'm trying to help you, idiot," Blake says in a tone laced with annoyance. "I asked you to never come near me again. You violated my one condition." "Do you know how that makes me feel, Blake?" I ask, feeling a tear roll down my cheek. "This is exactly what I was worried about," I hear a voice say from behind me. Spinning around, I meet a familiar pair of amber eyes. Leo the First asks in shock and happiness. There right behind me was my true friend. "Hey, Rave," he says, giving me a sympathetic smile. I return his smile, which he scowls at. "What's wrong?" I ask, wondering what could be bothering him. Maybe it was my brother. I knew these two hated each other, so perhaps Leo is here to rescue me. "Rave, you smiled at me," he says in a serious tone. "You act like it's the end of the world," I say, letting out a small giggle. Leo's eyes open wide in horror. "You giggled and gave me a smile, Raven. What's happened to you? I've tried for years and years to get you to smile, yet all of a sudden you throw one at me as if it's no big deal." "Raven, this isn't you. Where's my Rave gone? The one that would scowl at me for being stupid. Where has she gone?" he says, looking at me straight in my eyes. "I've changed," I say, looking down to the floor. "This isn't you." Chapter 48, Son of Satan. Leonardo Helling, son of the devil himself. I've known him for years now. He's deceiving, despicable, and dastardly evil, yet he seems to show a little kindness towards me. He made it his mission to get a smile from me. But when he finally got it, he was shocked to the core. I look into Leo's pleading eyes. What has happened to me? I look at the ground and think over everything. I started to change when I fell in love with Luke. When I allowed myself to love. Thinking of how Leo was reacting to this. Images of our first meeting flashes in my mind. I remember it vividly, the day the devil and I met. I was only 13 and had already began my Reaper training. Father decided to assign me the souls that were condemned down to hell, telling me to reap the souls of those who did nothing but wrong. Along with this assignment, he took me on a trip down to the fiery pit that is hell. There I was introduced to Satan, or Lucifer as he likes to be called. His amber eyes were piercing when we first met. However, I wasn't frightened, not one bit. "This must be Raven, your youngest child," Thanatos, Lucifer had said, looking me up and down with his cold amber eyes. "Indeed, she shows so much potential. If only Blake too showed this anyway." "I heard you two have a son," my father had commented to Satan as he glanced around the fire-filled throne room. "Ah yes, my pride and joy, Leonardo," Lucifer had called his son from the top of his voice, bellowing around the very room we stood in. "He has just turned 14. Still a long life to live," yet I remember my father chuckling as they commented on their years of experience with the death cycle. I remember growing bored at their small talk and ventured off into the halls of hell. When I was glancing at a certain fiery pit that demons were pushing condemned souls into, was when I was introduced to Leonardo Hellingun. "So you're that Reaper girl I've heard of," Leo had muttered from behind me. I had spun around to look into his eyes. The amber orbs he used to look me up and down were glowing vividly. "Why are you wearing that hood?" he asked as he sneered at me. "Only those I trust shall see my appearance," I had shot back confidently. "Enough games," he bellowed. Leo had leaped at me in an attempt to bring my hood down, however, I just skillfully dodged his attempt. "For the son of Satan. You sure are pathetic," I had seethed at him. Walking back down the hall, a low growl followed me as well as his racing footsteps. "You're the pathetic one. You hold no true power at all. All you Reapers do is swish your scythe to get a soul." Us demons do all the torturing while you just relax down in your fancy little underworld. That was when he stepped over the line. I remember gripping onto my scythe so tightly that my knuckles had grown white. I glared right into his amber eyes. Leo gave me a shocked look as my eyes had grown pitch black. You may think you demons are all high and mighty, but the truth is this is all a game to you. You torture the souls of humans while reapers keep the balance in check. Without this balance, the world would erupt into chaos. So bite your tongue, little demon. And keep it there until you realize where the true work comes from. After I had bellowed those words at him, I stormed down the corridor with him tailing behind me until we finally made our way back to the throne room. Lucifer smirked at me as I entered, as did my father. They will make a great team, father had said. Partners in crime, Lucifer commented. Leo and I had both looked repulsed at the idea. We hated each other, and the thought of working together made this worse. The first mission we had together was to collect the soul of a bully. Leo and I walked the streets of Earth in silence as we searched for the bully's soul. Do you ever smile? Leo had asked. Breaking the silence. I have nothing to smile for, I announced, focusing my eyes on the path ahead. You sure are interesting, Raven Reaper, Leo said, marveling at me. I thought you hated me a moment ago, I sneered at him. Have you ever heard the saying the best of friends start off as enemies? Have you ever heard the saying curiosity killed the cat? I said in annoyance. You know, I think you're starting to warm up to me. Do you? Because I don't. You know what? I'm going to make it my goal to get you to crack a smile. What a pointless goal that will be. Cheer up. You're with the best demon in the business. You should be honored. I'd be honored to get away from you. Secretly, I had lied at that comment. Leo was right. I had started to warm up to him. His company was a lot more interesting than the company of anyone down in the underworld. Leo had crawled his way into my cold black heart. He had become a friend to me from then on. He and I were friends. I may have scowled at him for his stupidity, but that was what he wanted. By being stupid, he thought I'd cave in and smile. I never did, all until today, sinking to my knees. I look into the eyes of my old friend. What's happened to me? I sob out, grasping my head into my hands. Leo walks towards me and helps me off the ground. Rave, it's okay, I'll help you fix this. We just have to get rid of one little problem. The mortal Blake growls out. Perhaps he's right. Luke is the cause of my weakness. The first time we met, I was asked to collect his soul. The time has finally come tonight. I shall collect Luke Smith's soul and end this torture. Chapter 49, The Selfish Reaper. Is it possible to get rid of someone you cared for deeply just moments ago? Is it possible to return to the person you once was before they entered your life? I want to return my old icy state, but I feel like I can't, and that's the problem. I'm feeling too much. I'm supposed to keep my emotions locked away, but I couldn't, could I? I had to let them overflow and take over my life. Why is being a demigod so complicated? Come on, Rave. You can stay with me, Leo says as he pulls an arm over my shoulders and starts walking me away from my wretched brother. Aren't you forgetting something? I hear Blake say behind me. Nope. Leo replies without turning back. It's you who's forgotten something, I seethe under my breath. Really, Blake says, sarcasm lacing his tone. Where's your son, Blake, as I say this? Leo comes to a halt. You have a son, he says, turning to face Blake. You had to tell him of all people, Blake says. Sighing, I'm shocked to the core, Mr. Darkness. Leo says, holding his chest in fake hurt. You. And a child, gosh, now that is danger, Leo says, his eyes slowly beginning to illuminate. I'm a better father than you could ever be. Blake grits out, his eyes slowly being consumed by darkness. Really? Care to elaborate where this son of yours is? Because if I had a son, he'd certainly be at my side at all times. Leo screams into my brother's stone-cold face. I can't exactly bring him here where gods have easy access to kill him. Then who's looking after him? Leo practically spits out at him. Well, before Blake can finish his sentence, a familiar voice begins chanting in the background. Fight, fight, fight. I turn to the source of the voice and find Hermes and Ally standing right behind us. Ally keeps nudging the god in the side to shut him up, but doesn't succeed. What on earth are you two doing here? I yell at them, causing Leo and Blake to turn to face them as well. Seriously, that god is so annoying and nosy, it's unbelievable. Leo shouts, pointing at Hermes. I may be nosy, but at least I don't have a short fuse, Hermes says in amusement, cocking a grin to the side. What are you implying? As Leo says this, his eyes begin to glow vibrantly once again. Oh, how ironic. Some beings are just plain idiots, Blake says, sighing as he slowly begins to approach me. Before he can take another step, Leo stands in his way. Now, where are you going? He says, raising an eyebrow. Grunting, Blake stays put. I turn my attention back to the two little spies behind me. Answer the question, I grit out. Ally goes pale as Hermes crosses his arms over his chest. Miss Reaper, are you trying to be intimidating? You're weakened. You won't scare anyone like that, Hermes says, chuckling to himself. Leo and Blake both glare at him as I stand still, stunned, looking intensely at my face. Hermes grins. However, tears fall down Ally's rosy cheeks. This is all my fault, she cries out in anguish. Now what gave you that idea, I say, lacing my every word with sarcasm. Rave. Give the girl a break, Leo barks at me. I turn to him, shocked he actually spoke to me in that way. Besides, aren't you the one who asked her to turn you human? Blake says, cocking an eyebrow at me the second time. Not the first, I say, clenching my jaw. Oh, Miss Reaper, I do believe your cold heart is the reason why she stripped you of your powers in the first place, Hermes says, leaning on the mound he was hiding behind moments ago. But I believe that your heart is neither cold nor black anymore. Is it? Hermes says, grinning at me. Then what exactly is it? I ask in annoyance. Your heart swells with pride, but also is overflowing with jealousy. Miss Reaper, if I may say, I'm certain that your selfish actions have led to this. As selfish, I cough out, shocked. Well, what did you think? It was kindness, caring love. Hermes says, his grin growing wider and wider. What exactly are you implying, Flyboy? Leo says through his clenched teeth. Think about it. Blake, you must know what I'm talking about. After all, you've been suspecting this all along, Hermes says, bringing everyone's attention to my brother. With all eyes on him, Blake shifts uncomfortably under our gazes. Turning back to Hermes, I glare at him. Think about what I say. Well, Miss Reaper, you're extremely selfish, you know that. You started a war based off a mere vision. The future isn't set in stone, Raven. You could have chosen a different path. Instead of declaring war on a foolish vampire king, you could have simply stripped him of his immortality instead of your little boyfriend. As Hermes says this, his childish grin no longer remains and his face grows cold and stern. You took the mortal's immortality? Blake asks from behind me. I don't glance his way and merely remain as silent as a mouse. Oh, that's not all, Blakey boy, no. Hermes' words begin to taunt me, causing me to turn my head towards the ground. Little miss, I'm the most powerful Reaper over here, has been recruiting gods of many arts to aid her in this war. However, one of these gods saw past her actions and realized the real reason she started this war. That's right, kids. The Indian god of war rejected her request because the real reason this war began was because Raven wanted the glory of winning a war. Hermes practically yells out at me, that's not true, I say, fighting back only to be shot down once again by the god. Not true, sweetie, think over your actions. People have been doubting you and Blake from the beginning. Even the Chinese goddess of mercy told you this, yet you wouldn't back down, would you? Oh no, you just had to let your pride take over, allowing your emotions to spill out. If this wasn't true, then answer me this. How can a demigod ever become a goddess? How? Hermes bellows out me, stricken with grief. I end up speechless. Ally looks at me, clearly shocked by Hermes' words. Oh, and here's the best part, Raven. I've discovered your weakness, Hermes announces proudly. Everyone turns to him, waiting for the answer to fall from his pink lips. Trust, Chapter 50, Faith and Trust. He hit the nail on the head. And that nail hit me hard. My weakness all along has been trust. It always will be. Why in God's name couldn't I trust people easily? Actually, no, in fact. Why did I trust people too easily? I warmed up to Luke so fast and Leo was a one-off, but everyone else has betrayed me. Luke wanted his mother wanted me. Blake wanted a cure. And father wanted everything hidden from me. Everyone I thought I could trust turned against me and stabbed me in the back. Why is trust such a hard thing to earn? Looks like Miss Reaper has gone silent, Hermes says, smirking. Why has he turned all sinister all of a sudden? Hermes, usually you're an annoying little bugger. What's gotten into you? Blake says, his cerise eyes piercing Hermes' dull ones. Wait. Dull eyes? Hermes' eyes are normally bright, not cloudy like they are now. Something's not right. I turn to Ally's face. Why is she here anyway? Closely, I look deep into her eyes. She looks frightened. Why would she be frightened unless? That's not Hermes, is it, ally? I question, looking into her fearful sapphire eyes. Raven, before she could finish her sentence, the fake Hermes slapped a hand over her mouth. Get your hands off her, Leo growls out. The demon's got a soft spot for her just like I do. It appears that demons are not the only ones who can deceive, the supposed Hermes claims. Chuckling darkly, then it hit me this time. I looked deep into the imposter's eyes. Their true color was sticking out from the dull blue color. A piercing gray color, in fact, Rayne, I say, my eyes widening at him with a snap of his fingers. A deep green smoke surrounds him and his true form is revealed. He grabs Ally's arm. His grip so tight that Ally's fragile skin grows white under his touch. Like mother, like daughter, Rayne chuckles darkly. I'm nothing like that monster, I snap in anger. But you are more than you realize. Now on to business, Rayne says, turning his undivided attention to none other than Blake. Tell your dear sister here who is babysitting your little brat, Blake. I turned to Blake to find his face had grown white with fear. Blake slowly turns to me and gulps. I called a babysitter in town called Jane, he says. Realization dawns over me and I turn back to Rayne. Harriet, your daughter, I say. Realizing that if he disguised himself, it's possible he sent Harriet to kidnap Blake's little boy. Now you two will come with me or the girl and the boy gets it, he says, holding a sharp blade against Ally's neck. Callum will kill me if he finds out Ally's life is being threatened. Where is he anyway? Pushing the matter aside, I stare deep into Rayne's piercing eyes. Let her go and I will go with you, I say. Looking down to the ground, Raven, no. Blake cries out just as Leo stares at me in shock. I need 2 reapers, not 1, Rayne beams, glaring at Blake. I turn to him and immediately shake my head. Don't do it, Blake, I say, watching his features grow paler. He has Edward, Raven. I can't let my only son die, he says, looking at me. For a second, I thought I saw a crystal tear roll down his cheek, but just as I blinked, it was gone. I must have imagined it. Come on, Mr. Prince of Darkness, you're smart. You can get out of this mess, I hear Leo whisper in Blake's ear. Blake firmly nods in the demon's direction, then turns to me. He quickly grabs my arm and faces Rayne. Let them both go and we will come with you, he says with confidence. Rayne grins as he slowly loosens his grip on Ally. As soon as she can escape from his grasp, Ally runs towards Blake and I, tears streaming down her face like a waterfall. Don't go, Raven, she pleads, looking deep into my eyes before Leo places a hand on her shoulder in comfort. Rayne snaps his fingers and a green smoke surrounds my brother and I. All of a sudden I feel dizzy and can't comprehend what is happening around me. I hear a thud next to me and find Blake is lying on the floor unconscious. I take a quick look around and find we appear to be back in Crow's home. Instantly I fall to the ground, my eyelids growing too heavy for me to pry them open. Just as I'm about to slip out of consciousness, I hear the words of the woman I used to call mother echo around the room. Children always come running back to their mothers. Leo's POV. I watch intensely as the green smoke disappears along with the 2 reapers that were once stood in front of me. That's when I hear the sound of wings beating behind me, causing my instincts to kick in as I pull Ally behind me. I look upwards to find the annoying messenger flying hurriedly towards us. I glare at him, feeling my eyes ignite at his presence. He falls to the ground, clumsily landing at my feet. Slowly his crystal blue eyes look up at me and he discovers the scowl on my face. Where the hell have you been, I say in a dark tone. I was stunned, Leo. Rayne is on his way to take Blake and Raven. He had Ally. Suddenly he stops as his eyes meet Ally's sapphire ones, which are looking scarcely at him. You're late, I growl out, glaring right through him. Well, if looks could kill, I'm certain I'd be dead by now, hey. Hermes says, awkwardly laughing at me. You dare laugh at a time like this, I beam, pushing him back to the ground like the dirt he is. Listen, Leo, chill out, okay? Look, this is Raven we're talking about. She will find a way out again and come home safely, he says, in attempt to reassure me. Don't you understand, you pathetic excuse of a god? Raven's mother has been growing stronger, and she's grown more cunning in the art of capturing her own daughter. Raven has needed help the past few attempts Crow has had against her because she is growing stronger. And you think it's okay to sit here idly doing absolutely nothing? I scream out at him, allowing my anger to take over. Raven is in danger, and I need to rescue her. Chapter 51 Witches. Don't forget Harriet POV. Before the kidnapping. Do you understand the plan, Harriet? My father practically screams at me, yes, yes. Disguise myself as a babysitter and look after Blake's child. I'm not stupid, Dad, I beam. Folding my arms over my chest, now that is debatable. What potential does Crow even see in you? All I see is a speck of dirt, Dad sneers at me. Then why did you choose me if you see nothing? Why did you choose me, Dad? Or should I say, Rayne, I say, slumping down into my chair. Harriet, I didn't choose to adopt you for fun. I chose you for business, you're a witch, Harriet. And I needed a witch on my side, Dad justifies as he glares at me. I roll my eyes and look away. And don't forget to drink that potion. That way Blake won't recognize you. At least Crow sees something. She calls me the daughter she never had, I spurt out in anger. And you know why Crow never had a daughter? Because she ran away from her for me, and she would do the same to you in a heartbeat, Dad announces, straightening himself up. If she ran away from her, why is she suddenly running back to them? I fire back, looking towards the ground. Since you never had a parental figure, allow me to get this into that tiny little brain of yours. It's a use or be used world, Harriet. You'd best remember that, he says as he clicks his fingers and vanishes into thin air. Huffing, I grab the potion and chug it down in one gulp. Next, I flip through my spell book and look for a stranger spell. Hair once as brown as mud, now become as gold as light, I announce, watching my brown curls transform into golden ones. Now what shall me alias be? I can't stick to Harriet. Blake might figure out who I am, maybe Olivia, no. What about Emma? No, that doesn't sound right, I know. Plain Jane, that's perfect. With a name like that he won't suspect a thing. Looking in the mirror, I smile at the appearance before me, but then my smile shatters. I like this appearance better than my own. Is it bad that I want to look like this? Blonde and beautiful. A whole new person means a whole new personality. A whole new start. I could have a new life. Away from Rayne, but then Crow would be disappointed in me. I don't want to disappoint the only person who's ever believed in me. Sighing, I close my spell book and grab my phone. Rayne messaged me the address to where I was heading. You can do this, Harriet, or should I say Jane? You can do this, ring, ring, ring. Sliding my phone out of my pocket. An unknown number flashes on the screen quickly. I whip the phone to my ear and answer it eagerly. Hello, is this the babysitter? You were supposed to be here an hour ago, and my Eddie's getting restless. I knew who that booming voice belonged to straight away. Oh, is this Mr. I hesitate, what's his last name? If I say Reaper, I'm pretty sure my cover will be blown. D. Dawson, this is Mr. Dawson. Now are you going to do your job? Or am I gonna have to complain to your boss? Blake beams down the phone. Don't worry, sir, I'm around the corner, I say. Slyly smirking, you better be here in 5 minutes. I have somewhere to be, he screams down the phone, hanging up on me. Don't you just love a traditional Reaper greeting? Time to visit the abomination that is Blake's son, I suppose. Clicking my fingers, I arrive exactly a block away from his apartment. Being a witch has its perks after all. Soon, the door to his home grows closer in my sight, and I find myself knocking on its white wooden surface. As soon as I knock, the door flings open and an angry Blake pulls me inside. He quickly stuffs the child in my arms and storms out the door yelling, I'll be back at midnight. Flinging the door to a close right after him, I look down at the devil child in my arms. This is a lot easier than I thought, at least. I thought it would be until the child started making a fuss. Hush, hush, Auntie Harriet is here now, shhh. Let me take you on a ride, doesn't that sound fun? I say in the worst baby voice ever. The child looks at me quizzically before pounding both of his chubby hands together in awe. With Edward in his little trance, I wave my free hand in the air, teleporting him and I back to my father's dwelling. Eagerly I run up to him, hoisting the child up on my hip. Father, look. I got him, wasn't that easy, I say, holding the child up as a trophy. Rayne takes one look at me and sneers. Keep the child silent. And take that stupid glamour off your face. You look even worse than you did before. And with a puff of green smoke, he had disappeared to go and fetch Crow's offspring. I look down at Edward with a tear in my eye. I hope your father will never treat you like that, I say, sniffling at the words my own father had said to me. The child looks at me in confusion. And then all of a sudden he began to giggle. I look at him strangely. What on earth could he find so funny? Why this sudden outburst of laughter? Edward began to open and close his little chubby fists. turning to me with an almost evil glint in his eyes. I noticed the black leather gloves covering his hands. He began fussing, so I merely take them off. The poor child clearly didn't like them. Are you hungry, Eddie? I say, bouncing him on my hip. But the child remained silent, tilting my head to the side. I look at him with confusion. What's wrong, Han? Homesick or something? But that's when he does something strange. His irises began to darken, and he started to reach out for me. His skin touches my skin. All of a sudden, I feel a strange chill crawl up my spine. I now feel dizzy and sleepy. That's when everything turns black. The last sound I hear was a child's benevolent laughter echoing around the room. Chapter 52. Mother Knows Best. When a child is born, an unconditional love for their parents is planted within their minds. The type of love only child and parent can feel. It's supposed to be unstoppable. The strongest love to have. It's not that strong for me. The bonds are broken between my parents and I. The bonds are broken between child and parent. Between father and daughter, brother and sister, mother and daughter. There is no longer a string binding me to my parents. It started to fray when mother left. Then it began loosing strands as Blake adventured off onto Earth, and then finally, the last strand that was keeping me together, giving me hope, eventually snapped once all my father's lies had been revealed. Nothing is holding me back anymore. My feelings for Luke were nothing but a fantasy. I was in love with the idea of being in love. I didn't want the commitment attached after all. I was a human when these emotions started creeping in. Humans can be cold-hearted creatures. Luke is one of them. He always will be. I'm never going to be able to heal him. I don't want to heal him. He can rot in hell for all I care. It's his fault I'm here in the first place. The days and mist soon leave my mind, along with the green smoke surrounding my body. When I open my eyes, I see something that a reaper should be used to seeing. I saw something familiar. I saw a corpse. I've turned a human into a corpse in the past as it's my duty. Yet seeing the corpse in front of me felt strange. In fact, it unsettled me. Almost as if I've never seen a dead body before. But that's when my gaze turned to the corner of the room after hearing a high-pitched chuckle. There my eyes once again met the pitch-black orbs belonging to my nephew. I turned back to the corpse once more and recognize now who it is. Harriet, I gasp out, turning my glare to the child. Blake places a hand on my shoulder. Don't, Raven, he snarls out. Are you telling me that a child that evil has a right to live? I say, looking at him with confusion. Of course he does. My grandson has a gift. Not a curse. I hear the horrid voice of Crow speak as she steps out from another room. Gift, I snarl under my breath. Using my last ounce of energy, Raven. Don't even think about it, Blake growls at me. Not looking me in the eye, coward. Yes, a gift, my sweet child, a rare gift as well. Who knew you could kill people without being a reaper? Who knew you could trap souls? I certainly didn't. But someone else did, Crow says, her voice growing lower at the end. She turned her head towards the door just as it flung open to reveal a certain gray-eyed wizard. Rayne, you knew my son had this curse. Blake spluttered out, confusion glazing his eyes. Curse? Are you stupid? This is a power and authority. What your son has is even more than a gift. He has been given strength. He can kill a god, for heaven's sake. Can you do that? Rayne snarls, glaring at the both of us, letting out a dark chuckle. My dear brother returns the wizard's glare, folding his arms over his broad chest. Do you even know what a reaper does, Rayne? Reapers kill, reapers deprive life. Can you do that? Blake says, mocking the wizard's previous words. I used to be able to, Rayne mutters under his breath, grabbing Blake's son, much to his distaste as he leaves the room. What did he mean by used to? I ask Crow, watching her mouth curve up into a smile. Rayne has a lot of dark secrets, my dear. This one is merely the beginning of his tale. But I'll let him tell you when he's ready, Crow says, holding back a laugh. You better bring my son back here, Blake growls out, thrashing his foot against the stone-cold floor. Calm down, my boy. If you cared so much about your son, you would have done a background check on the babysitter you hired. I mean, if your sister figured it out, why couldn't you, Crow says, sarcasm lacing every single word. I was in a rush, Blake says, before being interrupted to save your sister. Blake, sweetie, your sister is weak. Look her. Not once has she threatened to harm Rayne and I. She's allowed herself to feel. Didn't your father tell you how dangerous loving emotions are? Crow says, tooting at the two of us. You know nothing of what happened, I spit out meekly, growing weaker after every word. Tired, my dear daughter, take a seat. You'll be here a while, Crow says, laughing darkly. Instead, I grab hold of my brother's shoulder for support, trying my best not to cave in. Blake steadies me with an arm, glaring at Crow. Are you proud of what you've done to your own daughter? Blake says, shaking his head at the woman who birthed him. Oh gosh, you think I'm the one who made her weak? No, my son. That was all made possible by that little immortal. Or should I say, stupid mortal now, since my dear daughter has discovered her dark side, Crow says, looking me up and down. It's revolting how you treat you children, Blake snarls, looking away and focusing on steadying my balance. It can't be revolting if my own flesh and blood doesn't even acknowledge me as the person who gave them life, she says in fake sadness, mocking the two of us as far as I'm concerned. You didn't give us a life worth living, I say under my breath, causing Blake to let out a small grin at my comment. Just remember, my dear Raven mother knows best. And I always will. Chapter 53, Ghostly Visit. After those words, Crow left the room with a slam, locking the door behind her. Blake practically carries me to the chair nearest to us, helping me sit down while still looking concerned. Never in my whole existence have I seen my brother look this concerned. Once I was safely sat down on the chair, Blake began pacing around the room, his hands scrunching his hair up now and then. Suddenly, he slammed both his hands on the nearest table. Why, Raven, he screams at me, turning his face to mine. Our eyes connect and I notice how his are darkening. But there was something not quite right about the way he was looking at me. He started to advance my way, all the while not removing his gaze on my eyes. He crouches to my level and brings both hands either side of my face, looking deep into my eyes. Worry flashes in his cerise eyes, the dark specks returning to their usual color. He drops my head from his hands, scrambling to his feet, moving away from me. Why are you all looking at me like that, I ask, stumbling over my words. Raven, since when have your eyes had blue specks instead of black, he says, looking at me like I'm a ghost. What do you mean? I ask, covering my eyes with my hands. Raven, I'm telling you, I think your eyes are turning blue. That's impossible, I say, beginning to panic. Nothing's impossible in this world, an airy voice says from behind me, removing my hands from my eyes. I carefully look up at Blake to see him as white as a sheet. Slowly, I turn around to be met with a pair of familiar eyes, except their color was gone. Sarah was staring right back at me with her now dulled blue eyes. How is this possible? She should be trapped inside that demon toddler. For some reason, I couldn't bring any words to my mouth. It was almost as if the shock had locked away any form of communication I had. How, Blake asks, backing away from his previous lover. It's Rayne. Blake. He's performing some sort of ritual on our son. And here you are doing nothing about it, Sarah says in a ghostly tone, her face remaining emotionless. I'm sorry. What do you mean he's performing a ritual, I ask, slowly regaining my confidence. Think about it, princess. Every soul that demon child collects remains in his head. We're in the way, another ghostly voice says, this time from behind me. I spin around to see what appears to be Harriet leaning against the wall. Yet, she too is a ghost in the way, I question, looking at the two ghosts, utterly confused honestly. And you're the heir to the underworld's throne, Harriet says. I scowl at her, turning to Sarah instead. Raven, I'm a pure soul. I've been saying nothing but loving words inside my son's head. Rayne wants to corrupt my baby, she says as a ghostly tear somehow rolls down her cheek. Now it all makes sense. Rayne wants to corrupt that toddler because then he can use his deathly curse at his bidding. But how has he been corrupted so soon? I ask the ghost. A sad glint seems to form in her soulless eyes as she turns to Harriet's ghost. It was her spirit, her anger somehow affected him. Sarah says sadly. I turn to Harriet, who is still leaning against the wall. Which I don't know how, since it's physically impossible. But that's just it. She should be falling through that wall. Yet she isn't. Harriet, how are you leaning against that wall, I ask her. She scowls at me and shrugs. How should I know? I'm not even alive anymore. But that's why it should be impossible, Blake says, finally recovering from seeing his dead girlfriend. Sarah, do me a favor and just touch the table behind you, I say, pointing at the wooden object. She obediently does as she's told. Yet, unlike Harriet, Her hand goes straight through it. Just as I thought, I mutter. I gave Harriet once again. But this time I notice a big difference. It's her chocolate brown eyes. Sarah's eyes are white soulless. Yet Harriet has color. This isn't possible, Harriet. You have a physical form, I gasp, stepping away, and she says emotionless. It means your body is what corrupted Edward, not your anger. Did you drink anything funny or strange before you were supposedly killed by my son? Blake asks, glaring at the girl. Well, before I took him, Rayne did make me drink this strange potion, Harriet says. He's planned it all along, Sarah says, distraught. Rayne isn't that smart. He wouldn't just get rid of me, he needs me. Harriet exclaims in denial. Poor girl. She doesn't understand how cunning and evil her father truly is. She doesn't understand how his twisted mind works. But I do, because it's Mother who has corrupted it even more. And knowing Crow, she will have every single detail planned out. Which means, Harriet, he wanted Edward to kill you, I say. Watching her emotionless expression change to one of anger. What on earth are you proposing, she says, her face dripping with anger. What I'm proposing is that Rayne planned to have you killed all along. It's all because he needed Sarah out of his head. If she was still in there, then he wouldn't be able to manipulate Edward. I say slowly, realization dawning on myself as I speak. He's evil, that wizard. He knew Harriet would obediently listen to him. She saw him as a father, yet he betrayed her trust. And now it's all over. If Rayne gets in that child's head, it's the end of the world. The death crisis is happening again, Blake announces, pacing around the room. What's the death crisis? I ask, not knowing what he meant. Raven, this ain't the first time the death curse has happened. And it won't be the last.